Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. My guest this evening is Darshani Lahandapura, who is a former chairperson of MIPA, and this is all to do with the environment. And the question really is, the Express Pearl disaster, is it a fanciful claim or a realistic one? Let's find out from a professional in the field who was also the chairperson of MIPA. Good evening, Darshani, and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Faraz. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is it a fanciful claim or is it a realistic one?
Well, to tell you frankly, we actually didn't prepare this the way that we want, but there's a scientific structured mechanism that we adhere to.
Okay.
And I must mention that we have MIPA appointed a scientific committee which comprised of professionals, academia, and also some of the professionals who are involved in these sectors, like government sector. For example, Wildlife Department, NARA, CEA, Central Environmental Authority, CCD, etc. So we had nearly 40 professionals and we had nearly 11 subcommittees. It was a structured approach. So the TUR that we have given to this expert panel is to carry out a comprehensive damage assessment.
Okay.
Right? We didn't give any limitations because the idea that we had was to identify the entire damage, quantum of the damage happened to our marine and coastal environment, because this is one of the unique.
Is there anything comparable to this?
No, I don't think. No, I don't think, because this is, as I told you, this is a unique maritime disaster happened in the maritime history. This is the largest plastic pollution. More than 12,000 metric tons of plastic.
These nurdles.
Nurdles, of course, nearly 1,600 metric tons.
Okay.
It is amounting to 50-60 billions of nurdles. So the collection of nurdles is very, it's challenging.
Yeah.
Right? So basically, we had chemicals, we had oil, we had plastics, we had heavy metals, electric and electronic cargo. So it's a kind of cocktail, as our expert panel mentioned. So we had everything there in our coastal area, the ocean. So we appointed this expert panel to carry out a comprehensive and structured scientific assessment. And they actually, according to, they have studied a lot.
Yeah.
Because this is not the first experience that we appointed this scientific panel. Prior to this, we had this empty new diamond. That was the first incident or the instance that we appointed an expert panel to carry out scientific environment damage assessment and valuation. Initially do the damage assessment and then convert that into rupees and cents so that we can claim it. So that was the empty new diamond was the very first experience. And then with that we had some experience. So it is just a matter of expanding and extending that to the other areas.
Okay.
And as I told you, we had 11 subcommittees comprised of senior professors and two senior professors, Professor Ajit Alvis from Moratuwa University and Professor Prashant Gunawardhan from Lahandapura University are the co-chairs. So under them there were 11 subcommittees and we did that calculation. They have studied a lot, not only within the country but also within the country we never had anything similar to this. So they have studied from the UK, US case studies, everything, and they have come up with this. So, and also one important thing, this amount is the second interim claim amount, meaning that there will be more claims to come.
This is the second.
Second
so
interim.
6.4 billion is
the second interim claim.
And how much was the first one?
It was, first one actually we did up to November 2021.
Okay.
Right? The period was that from May to November, and during that period the damage was $1.9 billion.
Okay. And has any of this money been paid?
No.
Nothing?
No, because we have not sent them a demand or anything.
Right. But are they, have you all put them on notice that there will be a claim?
Well, everything I think they know, and every communication to the owners and also to the insurers have been done by the Aegis department, not ourselves.
Okay.
Directly.
And in this whole process of, making the claim, calculating the potential, especially the potential, maybe there are things that is not visible to the naked eye right now.
Yes.
And so in the future there might be.
Yes.
So when you did all this, did any agency in Sri Lanka, whether it's the Aegis department or whether it's MIPA, did they employ any loss assessors to help with the making of the claim?
Well, loss assessors, no. Because now, even if maybe you're referring to the adjusters or something like that.
Yeah, well, we have the loss adjusters and we have the loss assessors.
Yes.
So the adjusters usually work on behalf of the insurer.
Yeah, that's right.
And the assessor the other side. Yeah,
basically no, but then instead that Aegis department retained an Australian legal expert team firm to advise them. So that is how it went.
And so it's $6.4 billion, and the figure is very interesting for our country because obviously, as you know, we have about $2.7 billion in reserves. So 6.4 certainly tips the balance. What chances of us getting paid?
Well, I cannot tell you offhand, but then my and the institution's point of view at that time when I was there, that we better file the case in Sri Lanka so that we can get a considerable amount. Yes.
And what is your view as a professional in the within the environmental sphere, and having been the chairperson of MIPA and a legal background on top of all that? What do you think where should we be prosecuting this? Is it in Sri Lanka or in the territory of where the owning company is located, which is Singapore?
Well, it's our considered view that we had to file the case in Sri Lanka due to the fact this incident happened within our territorial waters. Right? Now, according to the law of the United Nations law of the Sea Convention, basically law of the land prevails up to the territorial waters, so that our courts have the jurisdiction to hear this case before them. So, and also apart from that, Marine Pollution Prevention Act number 35 of 2008 given sufficient legal framework to do this case within the country.
And let's say it's prosecuted in Sri Lanka and you get a judgment here. How easy, difficult is it to have it enforced? You have to go back to Singapore and file action again there, right? Well,
even in now we have the ship owners and the operator charter party is there in Singapore, and the insurer is in London. So both these countries, they have this enforcement of foreign judgment act, and then both these countries have recognized Sri Lanka, so that enforcement will not be a challenge according to my point of view. And the other thing is that one of the lawyers who is in the private bar has already done this. He has filed a case against the interest of the cargo owners, and he was able to arrest one of the sister vessels of this same company, and he was able to obtain a letter of undertaking from the insurers in London, which is enforceable, executable in London. So this is not a difficult thing in my point of view. You know the person, Dr. Dan Malika Gunasekara, is the one who has filed the case.
But this is in a separate matter.
No, it's a separate matter.
Yes. But you're giving an example.
Example, yes.
Yeah, of an enforcement.
Exactly. So definitely the government of Sri Lanka can do that. If a private party can do that, definitely the government can do that.
Thank you very much for your questions. 0772 300 305. And one of our regular viewers, of course, is pointing out that it is not 6.4 billion that is due at the moment. It's actually 8.3. Absolutely correct, because we have 1.9 billion from the first
No, that is all inclusive. That is inclusive.
Oh, the 1.9 is included?
Included, yes.
There you go. So thank you, but the math is 6.4 billion, but we can claim more.
Yeah, because this is second.
This is, okay. So, but in the meantime, Darshani, the government, we are told, has already launched action in Singapore.
Yes.
So, is that going to be detrimental?
Well, I would prefer not to comment on that.
Okay.
Because anyway, this is an ongoing case.
Indeed.
So
okay.
better not to.
But what about this business of where the wreck wasn't allowed to be inspected by various experts? Can you explain that? Because from the one side, it appears that some foreign ship owner, through his agents here, is blocking the normal course of investigative work, and that's not acceptable.
Well, let me explain this from my point of view. Basically, the impression given to the others is that we were not allowed, they were not allowed to go to the area, they were not allowed to take samples, they were not allowed to inspect the area. So this is actually half truth.
It's only half the story.
Half, yes. Because we have collected a lot of samples from the area. Water samples, oil samples, sediments, etc. And also, more importantly, NARA carried out some studies or the testing there according to the instruction given by the UN experts. There were 3-member UN expert team came in the month of June. They have advised NARA to carry out certain studies there. So that also was conducted. The only thing I think they are referring, I was not there when they were claiming this, the expert panel. I think only thing, the thing that they are claiming is that when the wreck removal operation is taking place, certain area was demarcated as high risk zone.
Therefore,
because they told us very clearly there will be some safety hazards.
Oh, okay.
Because when the wreck is removed, they actually have sent 63 strings underneath to lift it.
Okay.
So it creates a kind of safety hazard.
Okay.
During that operation, no one was allowed to go there.
Right. So there is a rational explanation.
I think so.
I see. And what about this? Thank you again for your question. Somebody is asking us, what about this limitation of claim?
Yeah, that is actually a challenge.
Yeah. Because I suppose the viewer is referring to the fact that I think Express World went to the UK and got an order from there.
Yes. So this is one of the challenges, and both these countries have, they are signatory to the Convention of Limitation of Liabilities from Maritime Casualties claims. Yeah. So that is why that we prefer to file the case within the country, because they have taken a seal, they have taken order, and the ceiling is nearly 26 million US dollars. So the country or the Aegis department has to go there and file and lift the bar.
Right.
So it is a kind of a challenge that we face at the moment.
Do you see, Darshani, that we may do? Isn't there a potential that if we do the prosecution in Sri Lanka, and later the owners and their insurers will challenge the amount, citing the Maritime Claim Limit Act?
Well, we are not a signatory to that.
Right.
Sri Lanka is not a party to that convention, but both the countries, Singapore and
The UK,
UK,
because UK is
yeah, they
relevant
have the-
because of the insurance company.
yeah, they are signatory.
Right.
So even we get a judgment in Singapore, we are liable to that judgment which has taken from the UK.
Right.
So we have to break that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so two litigations have to be
And
two actions.
is there a precedent anywhere before in the world where a non-signatory has made a claim, and what kind of judgment followed there?
Well, I cannot be sure because I have not studied that, to tell you frankly. But this is possible.
It's
Quite possible. Yeah,
that-
yeah.
And if we get this judgment in Sri Lanka, I mean, as a Sri Lankan, we presume, notwithstanding the independence of our judicial service and so on, that it's obvious that we will get a judgment because it happened within our territory and so on. But doesn't that then lead to further litigation in, say, Singapore? Because we are filing action against the owners, and they will pass it on to the insurers. Isn't this, what about this double sort of litigation in terms of time and an expense?
Well, it is actually a considered decision that we have to take. Now, when we file the case in Singapore, and if we get limitation to this 26 million US dollars, then it's a challenge. And that is, we have to keep in mind that this 26 million is not only for us, but for the cargo owners as well, for the other parties as well.
Oh, okay.
It's a total amount.
Okay.
So
it's a
we'll
total
get
loss amount.
total, yeah. So we get kind of a very, very minimal amount. So in that case, getting the judgment here and enforcing will be the easiest and most viable option that we had. But then I don't want to go into discussion because now anyway the government has taken the
Decision
step.
to,
Yeah, they have filed this already. So
So we're going to have to live with that and suffer the consequences or not. But on that note, Darshani, let's go for a quick break and take a peek at this evening's headlines from the wonderful primetime news team upstairs. See you on the other side of the break, shall we?
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
Wild elephant attack in Ududiyaluma claims the life of one woman. Girl from Gampala missing for 5 days, suspected to have been murdered. Program to provide 15,000 rupees to 400,000 families presented in Parliament. Will the Prime Minister be changed? Will the governors accept the President's request and resign?
එතුමල්ලා මං හිතන්නේ නිවැරදි වෙලා ඒ කටයුතු කරයියි කියලා අපි හිතනවා.
Treasurer of the Parliamentary Committee on Finance increased Treasury bill issuance by 1 trillion in the absence of a chairman of the committee. The new Central Bank Act was postponed because it would have prevented the government from printing money. Party accusers in Parliament.
මේ මහ බැංකු පනත ඊයේ විවාදයට නොගත්තේ එක්ස්ප්‍රස් පර්ල් නැව හින්දා නෙවෙයි. එහෙම නැත්නම් විපක්ෂයේ ඉල්ලීමක් හින්දා නෙවෙයි. ගත්තෙම මෙන්න මේ පනත අනුමත කළා නම් මේක ගෙනල්ලා මේ බිලියන 1000කින් අපේ ණය සීමාව වැඩි කරන්න නොහැකි නිසා.
Yedaravava village in Navagattegama to receive clean drinking water under the Gum at the initiative.
මම නම් කැමති නෑ මේ රේන්ජ් මැරේජ් වලට. මට ඕනේ හොඳට තෝරලා
සුපර් මාකට් ගියා වගේ හොඳට තෝරලා බලලා ගැලපෙනව කෙනා තෝරගන්න. ගැලපෙන එක ඔච්චරටම තෝරනවා නම් ගන්න වෙන්නේ ඉන්ෂුවමී එකෙන් ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකක් විතරයි.
ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකක් ගන්නවා නම් ඉන්ෂුවමී එකට කතා කරන්න. හොඳට තෝරලා කම්පෙයාර් කරලා අඩුම ගාණට ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් සුපර් මාකට් එක Newsfirst.lk.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with Darshani Lahandapura, the former chairperson at MIPA, and it's all about XPRESS Pearl and the damage to Sri Lanka's environment, short-term and, of course, long-term. Tell me, Darshani, how are you monitoring the damage? Surely the cleanup didn't get rid of all the damage.
Well, damage, of course, when we consider the damage, it's not only along our beach strip, but also underneath the seabed.
Okay.
So basically, our team, the expert team, apart from these 40 experts, there's a huge number of research team.
Okay.
So they went to all these areas, collected samples, as I told you, water samples, sediments, oil, and even during the fire, you saw that black thick smoke. Now, NBRO team went there. They couldn't reach. They couldn't go to the closer proximity because the temperature was high. So they were there, say within 500 meters. Close to the vessel, they actually monitor the air quality from that day onwards. Right? So we have all the samples, and we have a freezer container there. We have collected all the carcasses of turtles. And so likewise, we have done quite a extensive amount of analytical testing.
Right.
And then we have sent samples to government analysts, private laboratories, veterinary research institute, universities, plus overseas.
The retired commander of Sri Lanka's Navy, Admiral Ravi Wijegunratne, is a prolific writer, and he writes about this wonderful Mrs. Willie. Mrs. Willie is a turtle and has been coming to Sri Lanka for years and years and years. And most recently, Admiral Wijegunratne wrote about how after 41 years Mrs. Willie has come back, and it was like coming back home. So what of the hopefully Mrs. Willie wasn't in the area during this, luckily, wasn't there, and that was a great fear actually, that Mrs. Willie, this turtle's friend of everyone here in Sri Lanka, obviously escaped this thing. So what of other turtles then?
Well, we found nearly 400 plus turtle carcasses, meaning that the number of deaths is more than that. There's a study conducted somewhere other part of the world, indicated that if we get one carcass, it means at least 5 or 10 died. So you can imagine the number of turtles' death. And then we got nearly 36 dolphin bodies, 7 whales, plus thousands and thousands of fish scale. So the damage to the environment is enormous. And more importantly, it's not like oil spill. We had plastic spill. These plastics will be there in the environment for decades and decades. The challenge that we have is that these plastics, anyway, those are microplastics, and these actually can get these are breakable. And they get break into smaller and smaller particles fragments. And go into micro and nanoparticles. And they'll be in our ocean and coastal area, and will go into the food chains and food webs. So that is the challenge that we face.
And it's I think we really ought to do a full program on the monitoring of all of this.
Yes.
And who's helping you? Is it the Navy divers who are helping? Who's helping?
Well, actually, as I told you, this is also part of our expert panel report, and it's a part of their duty as well. So we have a team from the government sector organizations like Wildlife, NARA, CEA, etc. So basically, officers from these departments and agencies, they have developed long-term plans, monitoring plans, according to the advice of our expert panel. It is actually 2-year short-term, and then 5-year, we call it medium. It's not actually medium. But 10 years is not long term, but then that is our plan. At least for 10 years, we have to monitor to ascertain the exact amount of damage caused from this.
And is there enough
disaster.
money allocated by the government to fund these monitoring activities? Or is there some international organization?
Well, that is the challenge that we have. This monitoring budget is also in our claim, and we are planning to reimburse that from them and conduct. The way that we do beach cleaning, now at the moment what we are doing is we do the beach cleaning and reimburse that from the insurer. So similar to that, we have to get that also from the insurer.
What is it? What about... so even the environmental damage there might be future damage. We don't know.
Yes.
And that is again part of monitoring.
Exactly.
So at the moment, is this country, this wonderful paradise country where thousands come to see our nature and so on, but we don't have money. So, and it's absolutely critical that some money is allocated to us to look at the long-term monitoring, the environmental damage, the cleanup, and so on.
Exactly.
How successful or how good has been other organizations in coming forward with any help? Is there anything like that?
You mean the international agencies?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we had some discussions those days. Well, some of these agencies, they are keen, and some of them actually they supported some part of our studies, like some perception service conducted by one of the experts. So there were discussions, and I think I heard recently also MIPA, the current chairman also organized some kind of awareness to the donor agencies. I think they'll be happily volunteering, coming and helping us.
What do you think the ship owners can say? I mean, this is just speculation, but what is their defense?
Well,
what could be their defense?
I think we better we not discuss, because this is a legal case.
So we shouldn't really speculate on that. But I have lots of questions. People asking what could possibly be the defense. I mean, that's why you have insurance. It must have been some mechanical whatever.
Well, I have some answers, but then
you prefer not
to say at the moment.
Just
because,
at the moment.
Yes.
Well, that's good,
it's
because it gives us a perfect excuse to bring back you to this program when it's time that you are able to actually share that information.
Definitely.
But I want to point out this as well. Some time ago, one president of our country said that he will be making appointments on a scientific basis. Well, we may not have agreed with him at that time, but certainly in the case of my guest today, Darshani Lahandapura, the former president did make a very well-informed choice, because you obviously got the legal background and you've got the environmental background to do that. So I'm terribly proud to have you as a guest on our program today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for considering us here at News First. Before we sort of end, you know the claim in the Gulf of Mexico long time ago, in 2010, I think.
Yes.
Do you think that but that was on an oil rig.
Yeah.
And this was within our territorial waters. Is there any comparison between this and that?
Well, we cannot compare apple to an orange, but then it's a different kind of destruction, devastating incident. But then here also, even we don't consider this as a huge environmental destruction. This also, it's kind of a silent killer, like, you know.
So we need to monitor.
Yes, of course.
Okay. But we've run out of time. So Darshani Lahandapura, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a great pleasure. And that's the way it was on Newsline Live this evening. It's now time for the primetime news, of course. And let's have a great evening as much as you can. Take care, and God bless you all.